He was a name that would plunge the world into darkness, a failed artist who became a ruthless dictator. But who was Adolf Hitler before he became the Führer? His story begins not in a grand palace, but in the small Austrian town of Braunau am Inn in 1889. The son of a customs official, young Adolf had a difficult relationship with his strict father and a close bond with his doting mother. He dreamed of becoming a great artist, a passion that would lead him to Vienna. But Vienna, the glittering capital of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, was not kind to him. Twice he was rejected from the Academy of Fine Arts. He found himself living in homeless shelters, selling postcards to survive. It was in the gritty streets of Vienna that a dangerous seed was planted. He absorbed the city's pervasive anti-Semitism and radical nationalism, ideas that would fester and grow into a monstrous ideology. When World War I erupted, Hitler eagerly volunteered for the German army, finding a sense of purpose and belonging he had never known. He was a brave soldier, decorated for his service, but the war's end brought Germany's humiliating defeat, an event he would never accept. In the chaotic aftermath of the war, Germany was a nation in turmoil. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh terms, crippling the economy and wounding national pride. It was fertile ground for extremism. In Munich, Hitler joined a small, obscure group called the German Workers' Party. With his fiery charisma and powerful speaking abilities, he quickly rose through the ranks, reshaping it into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party. His speeches were electric, preying on people's fears and resentments. He offered simple scapegoats for complex problems, blaming Jews and communists for Germany's woes and promising a return to greatness. In 1923, he attempted to seize power in the Beer Hall Putsch. It failed, and he was sent to prison. Prison wasn't the end. It was a new beginning. Behind bars, he wrote Mein Kampf, or My Struggle, a rambling manifesto that laid out his hateful ideology and his plans for Germany's future. It was a blueprint for conquest and genocide. Upon his release, Hitler decided to take power not by force, but through the political system. The Great Depression of 1929 was his golden opportunity. As millions lost their jobs and savings, they grew desperate for a savior. Hitler's promises of work, bread, and national glory resonated with a terrified and angry population. The Nazi Party's popularity surged. Using propaganda, intimidation, and brilliant political maneuvering, they became the largest party in the German parliament. In January 1933, in a fateful decision, President Paul von Hindenburg appointed Adolf Hitler as Chancellor of Germany. The stage was set for a nightmare. Once in power, Hitler moved with terrifying speed to dismantle democracy. After a mysterious fire destroyed the Reichstag, the German parliament building, he used the event to declare a state of emergency, suspending civil liberties and silencing all opposition. Political opponents were arrested and sent to the first concentration camps, like Dachau. When President Hindenburg died in 1934, Hitler merged the offices of Chancellor and President, declaring himself Führer and Reich Chancellor. He now held absolute power. The Third Reich had begun. Germany was transformed, the swastika was everywhere. Children were indoctrinated into the Hitler Youth. Joseph Goebbels' propaganda machine controlled every newspaper, radio broadcast, and film, creating a powerful cult of personality around the Führer. The economy improved through massive public works projects and military rearmament, but this apparent success came at a terrible cost. The Nuremberg laws were enacted, stripping German Jews of their citizenship and rights. The persecution escalated systematically, culminating in the horrific violence of Kristallnacht, the Night of Broken Glass in 1938, a nationwide pogrom against Jewish homes, businesses, and synagogues. The world watched but did little. Hitler's ambition was not confined to Germany. He openly defied the Treaty of Versailles, rearming the nation and remilitarizing the Rhineland. He annexed Austria in the Anschluss and then set his sights on Czechoslovakia. European leaders, desperate to avoid another war, pursued a policy of appeasement, giving in to his demands at the Munich conference. But Hitler's thirst for conquest was insatiable. He had promised the German people Lebensraum, or living space in Eastern Europe. On September 1, 1939, his tanks rolled into Poland. Britain and France, finally realizing appeasement had failed, declared war on Germany. World War II had begun. The early years of the war were a string of stunning victories for Hitler. Using a new tactic called Blitzkrieg, or lightning war, his armies overran Poland, Denmark, Norway, the Netherlands, Belgium, and France. By 1940, he was the master of continental Europe. He launched the Battle of Britain, a massive air campaign to bomb the UK into submission, but the Royal Air Force heroically resisted. Then, in a colossal strategic blunder, Hitler turned his attention east. In June 1941, he launched Operation Barbarossa, the invasion of the Soviet Union. This opened a vast and brutal new front that would ultimately consume the strength of his army. At the same time, the final solution to the Jewish question was put into motion. The Holocaust, the systematic, state-sponsored genocide of 6 million Jews and millions of others, including Roma people, Poles, Soviet civilians, and disabled individuals, was carried out with industrial efficiency in extermination camps like Auschwitz. The tide of the war began to turn. The brutal Russian winter and fierce Soviet resistance halted the German advance at the gates of Moscow and Stalingrad. In North Africa, Allied forces pushed the Germans back. Then, on December 7, 1941, Hitler's ally, Japan, attacked Pearl Harbor, bringing the industrial might of the United States into the war against him. The thousand-year Reich was beginning to crumble. On D-Day, June 6, 1944, Allied forces launched the largest amphibious invasion in history, landing in Normandy, France. A second front was opened, squeezing Hitler's empire from the west, while the Soviets relentlessly pushed from the east. German cities were pounded into rubble by Allied bombing raids. By the spring of 1945, the end was near. The Soviet army was closing in on Berlin. Hitler, a broken man, physically and mentally ravaged, retreated to his underground bunker beneath the Reich Chancellery. He spent his final days giving phantom orders to armies that no longer existed, blaming his generals and the German people for his failure. On April 29th, he married his longtime companion, Eva Braun. The next day, as the sounds of Soviet artillery echoed above, Adolf Hitler and Eva Braun took their own lives. Their bodies were taken outside, doused in gasoline, and burned. Just days later, Germany surrendered. The war in Europe was over. The legacy of Adolf Hitler is one of unimaginable destruction and human suffering. His quest for power and racial purity led to a world war that claimed over 50 million lives and a genocide of unparalleled horror. His story is not just a history lesson, it's a chilling warning. It shows how a nation can succumb to hatred, how charisma can be twisted for evil, and how unchecked power can lead to absolute catastrophe. Remembering this dark chapter is our solemn duty, to honor the victims and to ensure that such horrors are never, ever repeated. Thank you for watching. Please consider subscribing for more deep dives into history's most pivotal moments.